Hello and welcome. It's another Tachiai news update, a quick hit from the crew. We've assembled them here. We're in between tournaments. The March tournament just recently concluded. The May tournament dangling in a juicy way in front of us. And there were a lot of things that took place during this period, and we're here to talk about them. I think the subject for today's video is going to be Yokozuna Hakuho. Hakuho has really struggled with his injuries. Specifically, he went back into surgery for that knee following during the March tournament. And he was already discharged from the hospital before the tournament even ended. His doctors said that he might have to consider a knee replacement. For those of you who aren't aware of what that is, they essentially saw your bones off, rip your knee joint out, and put in a piece of metal. It's a harsh, cruel, and frequently very, very useful surgery, but you just have to wonder about what kind of torture that poor guy is going through. There were reports during the tournament and leading up to it that every day he was having fluid drained from that knee just so that he could move around. Now, he looked strong. He looked dominant in the joint practice sessions, and so his skills and his sumo are just as sharp as ever. But his body is clearly entering the point where it's just going to say, you know what, you're going to keep going without us. Thank you. And so we're looking forward to his return in July to Yokozuna level competition. There's been some word from his Oyakata that July was do it or else. We also know that he's put a huge amount of his own personal reputation on doing a doyo iri at the Olympics, which were delayed for a year, and everyone's hoping will actually happen on schedule, the delayed schedule, this summer in Japan. So, Josh, I'm going to go to you first. We've all watched Hakuho quite a bit. I don't think there will be a Rikshi competing at his level in our lifetimes, or possibly not in anyone's lifetimes. What do you think's going on in there? I know Hakuho's like his own little corporation with a whole swarm of supporters and folks. What do you think's going on in Hakuho land?
I would love to be a shareholder of that corporation.
Yeah.
For the longest time, Bruce, as you say, the story has been that he would have some kind of involvement in the Olympics, and that would be kind of his final blaze of glory, the sort of cap at the end of what has been a tremendous and storied career. And he is set to be a torch carrier at some point, but beyond that, the thing that we have to remember, as you say, is that the Olympics, the nature of the Olympics have changed as much as Hakuho's circumstances have changed in the last year. And I have to imagine that's been very inconvenient for him as much as it has been for the rest of the world, much of Japan and the athletes who are competing and everything else. Olympics are obviously not just about can Hakuho prolong his career, but his intention was clearly to go out with that one last stand and the blaze of glory, and he's continued to struggle physically with all the issues that you mentioned. That delay has not been helpful if it is his ultimate goal. You look at the first two performances of this last tournament, and they're a little wishy-washy. There's a little bit of ring rust there for him, but ultimately he put up the wins in two matches in a short sample size. But you can't look at him and think that he doesn't still have the ability to compete for a Yusho in him. Obviously, he's not going to be around in May. He said he will be around in July. The intriguing thing, though, Bruce, is if hopefully he comes back as the sole Yokozuna in July and one last time has the ability to fight off this new generation of pretenders who are all trying to depose him and all trying to become the next Yokozuna. In a lot of ways, I think it makes the May tournament a little bit anticlimactic, because his last stand at this point, we talked in a different conversation today about Teruno Fuji and the great achievement he made, but Hakuho's last stand when it happens is probably going to end up being the big sumo story of the year when it happens. And so every single match, every single person that does step up to take him on when he does come back, you would hope are going to be approaching that like a match for the ages. It's the last time you might be able to face Hakuho, and it means more than ever. in a lot of different ways. So I think it's probably the most intriguing story that we have yet to see this year.
So Andy, you've been a long time follower of sumo. You've got a deep history of enjoying sumo from afar as well as from in Japan. 14 years. It was 2007 when Hakuho took the rope. 14 years competing at the top of one of the most brutal, personal, individual combat sports on planet Earth. And sometimes it cracks me up when people talk about, how he's not got it anymore. It's like 14 flipping years. I mean, what do you expect? I don't know. Your thoughts. You've watched him for a long time.
And he's seen so much happen during those 14 years. I mean, Asa Shoryu's downfall. He saw the earthquake and tsunami. There was the Yaocho scandal.
Yep.
And the fake basho then. He's gone through another 3 Yokozuna, and he has outlasted them all. Last year was supposed to be the end of the era, but that's been prolonged by yet another, the COVID era. And he
survived COVID. He had COVID. He was in the freaking hospital.
Forgot about that. Yeah, he has gone through a lot, and it feels like from his pedestal, like the weight of all of those scandals always rests on his shoulders. So I feel like when he steps off of the dohyo for the last time, he will finally be able to relax and focus on the new recruits, because we know that it's going to be just another career for him. He's already pulling in a lot of very, very
interesting,
exactly, and
unusual
talent down there.
Freaks of nature.
From Enho and Ishiura to Hokuseiho, and now he's got I'm blanking on the name of the
new guy,
new recruit. Yeah, he's got
he's a tree.
Yeah. He's going to have an amazing follow-up career as a fantastic oyakata and a restaurateur, which I gotta go to that restaurant. So I'm pretty excited for him. His legacy is going to carry on out there like Taiho. I mean, there's not going to be another one like him. He's going to reach that mandatory retirement age, and somebody else is going to come along, and he's going to have to, I don't know, kind of pretend
have to drag him out of there.
Carry my torch.
They're going to have to drag him out of there. His ego is enormous. All right, Josh.
To Andy's point there, real quick, what makes him different in this situation, as he's different to everybody anyway, from almost every other retiring Rikishi, every time someone retires, we have this conversation. Yoshikaze and Goedo, even Kisuno Sato and Kakuyu, they retire. What kind of an oyakata are they going to be? Yeah. We already know that he's going to be a great oyakata.
Yep.
He's already achieved more as an oyakata, even though he's not one, than most of the guys who are running stables right now, who have never produced a Sekitori, or maybe they produced one, or you know what I mean. Like, there are literally guys who have like 6 guys down in Sandanme, and that's like the stable they've been running for 20 years. Meanwhile, Hakuho has already achieved more than that, while, as you say, Bruce, he's been getting stuff drained out of his knee every day. I mean, it's remarkable.
Yeah. So I don't know, Josh, do you think we've been spoiled by having Hakuho around for 14 years? Because I think he has completely warped the nature of sumo. I also have to admit to our viewers that I'm old. I'm an old guy. And I've been watching sumo since the early 80s. And the Hakuho era has been so completely different than any other era of sumo. Because even when you had Akebono and Takanohana beating the tar out of each other all the time. You did not have anyone like Hakuho who just completely dominated everything. Have we gotten spoiled, Josh?
Yes. I think that what's evident by that is not only just some of the comments that we see, and I'm not encouraging people not to comment, but you go and you read forums or you read Reddit or you go on any of these places, Sumo Twitter, which we all love.
Thank you, Harith.
Yeah. Well, not just Harith's part of our family, but
I know, but I have to say thank you to her every time I can.
Other folks who are out there at Sumo Twitter, and some of the sort of who have wacky opinions is kind of who I'm getting at, who kind of think that, like, you're not really a good Yokozuna unless you win 5 tournaments a year. And that is a behavior which is learned, throughout the Hakuho era. I think the expectation is always, if you're a Yokozuna, you should be competing for the Yusho every tournament. Right. I think everybody accepts that. But the fact that you can actually win it, I think has changed the way that people look at that rank. Not always, for the better in terms of the public opinion, but, what we've been able to see and what we've been able to witness from this guy is just, it's remarkable. I mean, there, as I said a few minutes ago, there isn't, even when it gets to that last stand, there isn't a single match against a single person in the top division who you could put him up against and he wouldn't still be the favorite for on one leg.
And to last that long without the Kyujo. I mean, you go up onto the Sumo DB and you pull up his career and there's like this 10-year stretch of white stars. And it's just, we're absolutely been spoiled by that. But I'm definitely eager to see what kinds of talents he's going to be able to bring to follow.
So I think headed out one last thing, and I'd like your opinion on it, Andy, is that do you think Sumo Fandom is going to suffer when he retires? Because people are used to having this mass of eager competitors going up against the impossible champion and most of the time getting shredded. And it's going to go back to the sort of what it was in the early 90s and in the 80s, where you have a lot of really strong competitors and you don't know who's going to win on any given tournament. We've already seen that, and we've already seen that sumo fans some of them are having their expectations crushed by a revert to what is kind of normal in sumo. Andy, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that there will be some of the loss of luster, some of the loss of interest, because the greatest, when Michael Jordan hung him up,
yep.
I think that there will be a little bit of just kind of not sour grapes, but yeah, I can't find the word, but it will have lost that luster of Hakuho will not be competing. We already see a little bit of that disappointment when, for example, for May, when he's not going to be there, and if they were actually selling out tickets, it would probably be a bit easier to get tickets as a foreign sumo fan.
If you could get in Japan.
Tournament. Exactly, yeah. If we could actually get there. It probably, if it was a normal non-COVID year, it probably would be pretty easy to get a ticket in May because he wouldn't be there. And I can imagine that in that time period between Yokozuna, because there will definitely be several tournaments, if not a couple of years before we get another Yokozuna, that may have a considerable impact on the interest in the sport. I'm hoping that some of the up-and-coming talents, I guess, reinvigorate some of that fandom, but I do think that there are a lot of people who absolutely love Hakuho because he has just been so absolutely dominant, and they have been sad and disappointed and probably already a little bit a foot out the door, I guess, or paying less attention over the last year, because let's face it, he won, was it last March?
Yeah.
And it wasn't a particularly strong win, but he won. And then
well, that was the silent basho where there was nobody there, and it was just freaking eerie.
And it's been weird ever since. And so, I mean, I could definitely see a little bit of a lull period here, but it'll be exciting to see who comes up next.
Okay, well, hey, thank you everyone for watching along with us while we talked about the boss. We hope that he can pull it together and he can give us a couple more tournaments this year before he has to join the rest of the crew and take his final bow. Andy, Josh, thank you very much. And everyone, remember, for Sumo, it's Tachiai.